Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, one and all. Thanks for joining us in this LinkedIn Live. We are going to talk about transforming banking, harnessing BIAN for future ready architecture and strategy. So, this is a very interesting concept. As you know, that we do every 2 weeks a session where we bring in a very hot topic that everybody needs to know more about it. So, if you're just joining in today, please let us know from where you're dialing in because typically we have people all around the world joining us. Today it's at 6:30 p.m. in India, but two of our guests are in different locations. So I'm going to get them onboarded quickly. So let me add. Welcome, Mamta. Mamta is joining us from Melbourne. It's pretty late at 11 o'clock, but she's keeping herself awake to make sure that the people who are very hungry to learn about um, BIAN, she's going to get on board. Thanks, Mamta, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us here today, Suresh. We're looking forward to the conversations.
Yeah, and I want to bring as well as Nish. Nish is today this in this part of the day. He's in Sri Lanka, so he's joining us from Sri Lanka. What a great crew that we have! So I'm going to kind of get everybody. Hey, thanks, Nish, for joining us. Hope you're doing well.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Suresh.
Awesome. So, just for people who just joined in, if you can introduce yourself or just tell us from where you're dialing in, that would be great to look at from which location you're joining. But also, if you have specific questions that you want to ask the panelist, we're going to spend the next 1 hour. We want to make sure that it's enough amount of value that comes out in this particular session. So, please feel free to go and present, and we will also showcase who are the people who are joining in. So, before we get started, I want to give you a little bit of intro of a guest. So Mamta is the Chief Architect and Technology Officer with CCNC Solutions, over 20 plus years of experience in enterprise architecture and digital transformation. Mamta's work across different sectors like telco, health, insurance, and banking. She's got a strong technical and functional knowledge of core enterprise systems. I can go on and on, but she's very passionate about making sure to make a difference to the banking industry. Nish is the CCNC's global lead for banking and financial services, a seasoned transformation specialist with over 20 plus of years of experience delivering business and technology initiatives to large organizations, right? From strategy, business case, execution, and implementation. Now, both Mamta and Nish are BIAN certified consultants who are working with banks large and small scale across every continent and are helping them to adopt and implement BIAN as reference architecture. So it's been a great pleasure to have all of you here. Let's look at who are the people who have joined us. Thanks, Moritz, joining us from the Netherlands. Thanks for joining in the part of Van Heren Publishing. We have Vignesh joining from Sydney. Again, pretty late. I'm
Yes,
pretty impressed of the
yes, it
people's
is.
commitment to join at the late. So you're not alone. You have a lot of people. Thank you so
Yes,
much for joining this part of the year.
I'm very motivated to be here, looking at other people who are joining from Sydney and Melbourne. Yes.
Yeah, awesome. We have Vish joining us from Sydney. I know it's pretty late for him as well. Thanks, Vish, for joining us. We have Pooja Arora joining us from Kolkata. So, if you know Kolkata, Kolkata is called the city of joy. So, thanks, Pooja, for joining us, the city of joy. So, as we get in, we will get more people. But I just want to give you everybody a round of applause for joining us in this part of that because you can be busy for the whole day, and we are talking about in different time zones. We also have our familiar Dan Warfield joining us from London. So pretty much packed agenda for today. We want to make sure that we make this more interactive. So one of the conversations that I've had with Nish and Mamta is that, hey, let's not read through a slide. We want to solve the part, but we have to be very careful. We have got this audience who are just new to BIAN. So I just going to be throwing a word of caution. We just want to make sure that everybody understands the what is BIAN and why is it popular and benefits. So we are looking at hosting number of episodes as we go through it, but let's start with something small, right? So what I'm going to do is, with your permission, I'm going to kind of bring in the agenda for today. So this and I didn't introduce myself. A lot of people. I head the global sales and marketing for CCNC Solutions. And CCNC Solutions is a very proud organization, so over 20 plus years in the industry, serving a lot of clients, which I will come back here in a minute. But this is what we're going to cover broadly, right? What we have to do is to give a little bit of background on CCNC Solutions, more from what you can think about after we go through this scenario, because we will have some time for Q&A. We'll have a lot of time for Q&A, but we also want to understand how we can help, how these consultants can help you beyond just the webinar, right? We're going to give a little bit of overview, reference architecture, and things like that. So you will learn a lot. But 3 people, this is typically I do with 1 or 2, but this time we cannot afford to lose one. So we got everybody together. So one of the things that I wanted to kind of spend a little bit as CCNC Solutions is we have delivered BIAN for a lot of major banks. So if you are in the banking industry and you're looking at open banking and we're looking at the new ways of working, I think you can look at some of your predecessors who are already doing a lot of work in that particular space. So across continents. So one of the things that CCNC Solution takes pride is they are practitioners who actually make things happen as well as solve problems. And traditionally, and if you look at from our background and rich legacy, we have had strong background on enterprise architecture. If you ask Vish, we'll say that we eat, sleep, and drink enterprise architecture, right? So with that level of rich background, we have brought in an understanding of how we can work through to that, right? And we are also an active member of BIAN. BIAN stands for Banking Industry Architecture Network. And one of the things we take pride is also giving back to the community. So we are not only a BIAN member, we are also a gold partner of the BIAN annual conference that is coming in London later this year, right? So I'm going to kind of get this started off with some basic questions, if everybody's okay. So Nish and Mamta, if someone was talking about BIAN, I'm just kind of lost. What is this BIAN all about? Why are organizations, particularly the banking organizations, are looking at BIAN? And it's been a journey. So if you can just run this as to what we are talking about, that will help us to make things easy, right? So before I start, I'll just see we have Oyo from Nigeria as well. So keep coming in and post your questions as we go through it, as then we'll explain on that. So I'll just kind of open up the first one and ask Nish or Mamta to get started off on BIAN. Yeah.
Yep, I can start, and Nish, you can just add on to it. Suresh, as you started, what BIAN stands for is Banking Industry Architecture Network. The word itself has a network in it, so I think that should give us an indication. The intention of BIAN had always been to come up with a reference architecture for banking industry, and not come up with a reference architecture from a proprietary point of view, which does exist in the industry, but come up from a network, which is it's something which is developed by the practitioners for the industry, and it is not for profit organization. It's the intention is for the whole of industry to benefit of having a reference architecture. The intention is to give the content that is required. You can find many reference architecture in different industries, to be very frank, but something which is very specific to banking is what BIAN is trying to do. I recently just came out of talking to a really big bank here locally in Australia, and we were having this conversation, say, like, there is domain-driven architecture, there is so many different architecture practices and principles and thinking. How is BIAN different? And the main thing which I find why BIAN is different is it gives you the content which is required for banking industry to go and then end up creating their own architecture. All other frameworks will give you methodology, will give you framework, but what BIAN gives you is the content which is required. So if you look at it, covers the whole of industries, banking industry's functional components. So if you look at it, they have already defined around 327 different functions that a bank needs to have. And you go to any bank, these functions will still remain the same. They will not change. Adding to that function, what they have also gone ahead and said is that If these functions needs to communicate with each other, these are the service operations that these function needs to have, which could be very easily translated into your integration API. So in a way, what BIAN has gone ahead and done is given you a set of functions and given you how these functions will integrate with each other. Only thing that we have to do is design them in a way that it can be built in the organization itself. So it is a very easy path to implementation, which no other framework actually gives to the industry. So I have talked a lot about it, but then I think that's probably covers what BIAN is and what it provides.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of summarize that, and I just on a part before I go to Nish. What you're saying is that a lot of times we talk about reference architecture and stuff. Now we need to have something prescriptive for
Yes.
them to get an accelerated talk, right? Because where do you start? People get lost in this whole ocean. Where do you get started? So if there is something like a laser blueprint of these are the things that we need to do, step 1, 2, or these are the things that you have to have a shall clause that you need to fulfill, then it becomes much easier because you don't really need to figure it out. Where do you start? Where do you go? Because it's pretty complex in the way that the whole organization is looking at different third-party vendor integration and stuff like that. They have not owned it by themselves. So that's probably what you're saying. It's a more prescriptive for that people can take advantages from day one if they understand this better.
That is very true, Suresh. That's exactly what the intention is, to give the blueprint. And you actually use the word that BIAN says that is what they're trying to give. They're trying to give a blueprint to every bank. And they very recently, I also heard who's a practitioner of BIAN say that 80% of the 80% of what bank does, irrespective of which bank it is, exactly the same. How we do is it different, but what we do is exactly the same, irrespective of which bank you go. And that's what BIAN says, that here, if 80% we can standardize and 20% is our differentiator, then the industry can benefit a lot by having that standards in the industry. I'm gonna keep not talk much and let Nish provide his opinion as well.
The hard part with answering after Mamta is that there's not a lot to add, right? But I took a slightly different approach to this question, right? So I have a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I set myself the challenge of, okay, can I explain what BIAN is to them, right? So I sat them down and I said, look, it's a framework that allows you to define a bank as a set of composable building blocks. And they said, oh, so it's like Lego. And I was like, you know what, that's perfect. I don't need to add anything more to it, right?
Right.
But effectively, you know, the way I like to describe it, it's a collection of business capabilities that are discrete, they are well defined, they deliver some business capability or value. And essentially BIAN has taken the time to define 327 of these that collectively make up pretty much what any bank would need to operate, right? Covering everything from your products, your channels, your customer, your supporting functions, etc. So, to me, it's an amazing framework and content and reference architecture to basically just radically simplify your architecture, right? Moving away from large monolith, moving away from stovepipe systems, moving away from spaghetti APIs, and towards something that is agreed upon by everyone. So it simplifies your interoperability. It's stable, so it doesn't keep chopping and changing, because as Mamta said, it defines what you want to do, not how you do it. And fundamentally, it's an amazing foundation for digital transformation, for simplification, for open banking, and lots more, which we'll get into a little bit later in this session.
Awesome. So one question is it only for, because when I look at a lot of banking clients globally, there are still a lot amount of legacy that resides, right? So the question is BIAN only for cloud natives? I should be on containers, I should be on microservices. Or if a company still has large mainframe applications, that's the kind of legacy that I'm in, will BIAN be still relevant for me, or should I have a prerequisite before I jump into BIAN?
Yeah. Again, I'll start. I think I'll go. I won't even say whether legacy or modern technology. I'll say even if the bank was doing everything on paper, it will still be relevant.
Right.
Because what it says is it's talking about the functions. It doesn't talk about how you're again trying to do it and what technology you use to do it. And tomorrow, if we start using telepathy to do our banking, BIANs will still be relevant for doing that as well. So it is it is agnostic. In fact, the main reason, the first use case which BIAN started looking at was to actually get rid of that legacy. Although having said that, I always say that legacy is never bad. People do say that they have to get off mainframe. Sometimes getting off the mainframe too quickly is also bad for us. And
Sure.
that's exactly what BIAN says, that you don't have to just rip and replace everything. What you have to figure out is what you need, is what you want to do, and then identify how best you can transition to a state where you can optimize it further. So if you take a legacy or co-banking and modernization aspect of it, you take your legacy and say, what in the legacy do I have today? Create into again, as what Nish was talking, those Lego boxes, which we call in buy and service domains. What are provided, what are there existing today in the legacy? Identify the one that you want to move to modern technology, and just scoop that out of your legacy and put it onto your modern cloud. Your legacy will still work along with your modern technology, and it would be a gradual path to moving to a newer modern technology, SaaS platforms, cloud platforms, all of that. So yes, it is relevant irrespective of which technology era that your bank exists. And in fact, most of the banks generally at this stage have all different eras of technology coexisting.
Yep. And it's very true, right? I mean, I think sometimes I could get overwhelmed by that part. I like the part that you said that let's not replace just because it's a cool thing to do, right? People get this whole notion of fear of missing out. Let's pick up a new technology that is pretty cool enough to do that, but it's not. So, a question to Nish to kind of go and set that in terms of the benefits. If I look at banks, why do banks need to think about BIAN, right? What kind of things it could deliver as part of value? Because
Yes.
particularly what has happened is when I go to the senior leadership team, the senior leadership says, "What's the business case? Why do we need to do BIAN? We have invested a lot on enterprise architecture. Is it something new, or is it as an old wine in a new bottle?" So these questions start popping up every now and then. So, and you work with a lot of banks, and I know that you worked with a lot of these banks at odd hours. Now, one of the questions is, what's the use case? What's the benefits? What's the ROI that the BIAN can bring to any of these banks?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one I'm particularly passionate about, right? Because at the end of the day, the business case is king, right? So within a bank, no matter how lofty your aspirations are or what your intentions are, if it doesn't stack up from a cost-benefit ratio, it's just words on a page, right? So I guess before we talk about the benefits, let's just really quickly touch on what makes BIAN unique and how does it deliver these benefits, right? So there are lots of aspects and characteristics to BIAN, but the six that we kind of think of as probably the most valuable is, starting at number one, we use this term, it's canonical, right? Which means its representation is common and understood across any context and across any geography and across any organization. And that's really important because as anyone dialing in from a large enterprise, sometimes the first problem is language. It's getting an understanding between business units, between tech and business, between leadership and delivery on what exactly it is you're talking about when you say we need to change this, we need to modify that, we need to add this new thing. What BIAN does is it brings a common sort of language to how you describe things, and that's the first step in getting sort of an alignment and a collective will behind what you need to do. So being canonical is really important. It enables agility because it fundamentally just breaks everything down into small bite-sized chunks, right? So rather than trying to eat the elephant in one bite, you can break it down. You can tackle things in stages, and that's one of the kind of core tenets of agility. The third is it is fundamentally built on the concept of composability. So the very DNA of BIAN is, as Mamta said, the service domain, which is a self-contained, discrete capability made up of functionality, made up of data, made up of APIs, and you can orchestrate or plug these in lots of different ways. But fundamentally, you can build a bank by composing it of all of these blocks rather than starting with something that's bigger than Ben-Hur. As a result, it eliminates complexity. So it's fundamentally designed to abstract away, these kind of large, complex kind of interactions, and again, break things down, simplify it. I touched on earlier the fact that it's stable over time because it describes the what rather than the how and the when. Once you use it as a blueprint, you've got a very, very stable foundation upon which to build your transformation agenda and change planning. And lastly, and this is very, very important, especially when you're considering things like moving off a legacy mainframe, you can adopt it incrementally. So you can carve off bits. You can implement BIAN as a pattern in subsets of your organization, with the confidence that because it is a pattern-based framework, you are always going to be compatible as you roll it into other areas. It's not like you're going to start building a bridge and kind of end up not meeting in the middle. You can confidently sort of adopt it in pockets of the organization and eventually bring it together. So as a result, the things that hit the bottom line, right? It reduces complexity, which in turn allows you to get to market faster and reduce your cost. Your operational efficiencies is increased. You're aligned to an industry standard so that if you adopt vendor or third-party solutions that are also aligned to BIAN, you're kind of talking the same language and your integrations become much easier. It does help improve compliance and risk management, which is a big theme for banks. And it fundamentally future-proofs your architecture, right? So if you move to something like this, you have the confidence of knowing that, first of all, you're one of hundreds of banks and vendors that have adopted it. And it is, as I said, because it's stable over time, you're on a very solid footing. So BIAN-based business cases stand up really well, especially if you start in kind of manageable chunks and you can get things out quickly. You can get some kind of ROI and have a payback that's measured in months rather than years, which is all very, very important for the bottom line.
Awesome. So one question on this one is, let's say we have already, because traditionally what you have done is we have a product, I buy a product from a vendor, they have all these payments, they have all of those stuff, but I have not used it for their purpose. I have my own instance. So there are standalone instances that I've combined or integrated over a period of time. So in that cases, will I still be able to apply and like relook at what needs to be done? Because I've never thought when I built a particular system, because I've grown organically. So would that mean that I can do a retrospective, I can do a re-engineering of my as is state because it's already live, right? Can I do an as is state, look back and say, okay, with this part, if I look at BIAN as a framework, as a reference architecture, this is what I need to do. Can I go back and do some refactoring and re-architecting part? Is that even possible?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Suresh. I think first thing, I think most of the biggest challenge is that banks, a lot of people in our bank don't even know how much is the duplicate functionality that is existing in the bank.
Right.
That is the challenge. The visibility of having the duplicate functionality is very low because of many reasons. No, I'm not going to get into it. I think the immediate benefit that you can get from BIAN is by just laying out your current functionality over to the BIAN, what we call it service landscape. That itself, and even overlaying your application functionality over your BIAN landscape, that itself gives you such a big visibility into how many functions are duplicated within the bank itself in terms of the technology, in terms of the application, in terms of the vendor products which are there. So that when you talk about the as-is, definitely you can get that visibility by just laying it out using BIAN as a reference architecture itself. And then once you have the visibility, then you can plan out, do you have to rationalize or you don't want to rationalize because there is a need in the organization to not rationalize. But if there isn't, then you can plan out and create your transition map of how you're going to move out of the duplicate functionality, how you're going to rationalize your duplicate functionality. And that's the next step of leveraging BIAN altogether. On top of it, what BIAN also, as I was mentioning, provides you the standard set of service operations, which means that once you are trying to transition out, you can plan how to mask the areas which you don't want to impact as you're planning out your transition, because you're going to build those reusable service operations which are going to be stable over a period of time. So it provides a very step-by-step approach of moving from your as-is duplicate functionality technology to your transition state, which, as Nish was mentioning, is much more Legos blocks sitting next to each other with discrete boxes of functionality sitting next to each other rather than having a duplicate functionality on it.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. Nish, you want to add on to that particular structure, because I think this is very important because a lot of people are struggling. So, and you have had this instance many times of conversations. Where do we start with? So where do we, and how much time does it take, Nish, to the whole process? Because the moment you say that it's going to be 2 years, I say thank you so much. I have other work to do. So give me a very realistic time frame of when will it happen, my asset state to desirable state, because you promised me something very lucrative, but is it worth the time and effort being spent across?
Look, it's a it's a great question. It's a bit of a how long's a piece of string answer, right? Because obviously it depends on the size and complexity of your enterprise, right? So you've got, on one end of the scale, you've got global banks that are made up of lots and lots of basically separate banks around the world that have separate products and systems, and regulated by different jurisdictions and compliance requirements, all the way to kind of your smaller kind of regional banks, your credit unions, etc., where they potentially have a much more sort of contained setup, right? So probably the best way to answer this question is, realistically, if you carve out a use case, right? If you pick something that is manageable, you could absolutely get to a BIAN aligned capability that's adopting all the patterns and adheres to the reference architecture and complies to the API standards. There's no reason why you couldn't do that in a quarter, right? So within 3 months, it's very, very doable. If you were to then kind of rinse and repeat that and incrementally start to move the rest of your enterprise into alignment, I'm not going to lie, that journey can take years. But the best part is, along the way, you deliver benefit as you go, right? So
Right.
The very first step, which Mantha talked about, kind of the map and classify, is a great way to start identifying your duplicate capabilities. And one of the best ways to kind of return, put some money back into the treasure chest is to switch off systems that you're paying hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year to run, and you can bank that saving and reinvest it into the next capability that you need to build in a BIAN aligned way, which in turn will deliver benefit, which in turn will allow you to fund the next thing. So once you get the ball rolling, there is a way to kind of sequence your transformation and your investment sort of drawdown, so that at each stage you return some benefit within that sort of 3 to 6 month horizon. And in this kind of day and age, that's really critical to getting business cases approved, right? You're not going to get the 2-year check. You're going to get a 3 or 6 month check, and then you got to show what you did with that check, and then you get the next check. So
yeah,
I love
and
that.
I just add one more thing, that it has taken us years to be where we are right now, many years to be where we are. It's not going to be an easy and quick win, and we won't be able to get out of this very quickly. But with a planned approach of using this, we can have a low risk way of mitigating the risk, managing the risk, and have a planned way of moving out of more simplistic architecture. And that's what BIAN's intending to do, is to give a plan, so that you reduce the risk of impact, or reduce the risk of change when you are trying to simplify your architecture.
Awesome. We have got some questions coming on, so it's important for us to showcase. So, question from Moritz: thanks for this great webinar. Maybe at some stage it would be good to explain about the membership, and rather you need to be a member to leverage the benefits of BIAN. So, thanks for that part of it, because it's important for us to do. So, we will take that question probably after that, but I just want to run through all the questions a bit, if it's okay. There's another part, as the BIAN benefit slide is great. So I think thanks, Nish and Mamta, for that 6 points that probably drives the whole conversation of why this is important. We have Guru joining from London. Sean says, great point, great question, Suresh. Was wondering similar. So I think that's similar, the question to do it. But one more question I think I wanted to bring this as maybe for the end of the webinar, but I understand that BIAN is aligning more and more to ISO 2022 and things like that. And this would help to implement BIAN. So if you can also throw a little bit of light on the BIAN membership, do we need to be a BIAN member to leverage the benefits of BIAN, as well as this? Is there a particular ISO standard that we need to keep in mind to implement BIAN? So that both questions will be helpful.
Yes. So we would like to say that you don't necessarily have to be a member of BIAN to get the content which BIAN has. However, you can get a lot more benefit if you are a bank is a member of a BIAN itself, because it's as I was when I started, I talked about the community network. You get access to those. Those people who are practitioners of BIAN as a result of being a member of BIAN. So this definitely accelerates your adoption of BIAN in the organization if you are a member. But there is a lot of material still available which you could access even if you're not a member of BIAN. And very good point about ISO 2022. All BIAN service operations that we would talk about, which are now aligning to ISO business object model, what we call it. What it means is ISO is a message standard, and if we with the alignment of ISO with BIAN, what has happened is moment you implement BIAN aligned APIs, you're actually also ISO aligned integration you are building in the organization. So it's and not just ISO. If you look at other frameworks and standards which are existing in the industry, what BIAN has been doing over the years is either providing a point of opinion of how you can coexist with those standards and frameworks, which means that you don't have to go and reinvent. And that's not the motivation of BIAN as well. It's not there to replace other standards or other frameworks. What its intention is to coexist with those frameworks and standards, because it acknowledges the fact that every bank in every region will have to adhere to not just one but multiple standards for regulatory reasons and also for various reasons. So that's what BIAN's intending to do.
Awesome. There's a kudos to Nish. Tony says, "Love your work, Nish. Nice
Thanks,
to hear
Tony.
you present and see you taking this to the next level." So we're just trying to do a live thing part of it, but yeah, go ahead, Nish. You wanted to add?
Oh, I'll just add to what Mantha said, and also to Morit's great question, right? So, if you're anyone can draw from BIAN, right? So you can go to the BIAN.org site. There's a ton of great freebies. You can effectively sort of take what's been developed and implement it. But that's kind of more of a one-way journey, right? That's kind of taking what BIAN has produced and then taking it into your organization. Becoming a member kind of turns it into a two-way journey, right? Because there's a ton of great working groups that are actively refining and adding to BIAN every day, right? So hundreds of people across dozens of working groups, contributing. There are capabilities that they've exposed on their site that allow you to kind of customize and build, kind of take elements of BIAN and kind of string it together in a way that's suitable for your organization, and kind of download that. So there's a lot of ways you can engage with BIAN as a member that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. So it is a really great point, Moritz, and there is a call out here for those on the call. If you're with a bank that isn't a member yet, it is a great conversation to have with your CIO and CTO.
Yeah, awesome. So the next question is, I wanted to kind of bring it to this part, Mamta and Nish. Why does it matter to the banks, right? Why should they care? Because there are different personas that we have. We have executives, we have architects, we have technology, business operations. So I wanted to kind of look at what can be thought about here. So I just want to know which one is a good slide. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of you to run through, what does it matter? Why does it matter for BIAN? Because there are different levels of the organization, right? So if I'm an architect, my scope is very different. So can you just kind of run us through why it is relevant to all levels of the organization, and then how does it all become a cohesive unit?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you guys can still hear me, by the way. My app is frozen. So, okay, that's great. Fantastic. So look, there's one of the great things about BIAN, right, is it really forms a bridge between business and tech, between strategy all the way down to kind of operations. and it all centers around the concept of these elemental building blocks, right? These Lego blocks or service domains. So if you start at the top, right? If you are part of the C-suite or you're part of the board, you set a strategy and you have to deliver benefits or OKRs to the market, right? To your shareholders, to your customers, and your employees. So it's really, really important that a framework allows you to link your kind of transformation and your capabilities and your applications all the way back to your key strategic priorities and benefits. Because if you don't have that linkage, it's very, very hard to be certain that you're on the right track, and you can end up spending a lot of money on things that don't return results and starve the areas which could have returned great results, but you just didn't link everything up. So if you're an executive, what you care about is, can the organization inherit my priorities, and can everyone kind of pull in the same direction? And that's something that BIAN allows you to do. If you're in the transformation office, you've got a very big task, right? Because you've got to take that strategy, you've got to take the benefits, you've got to translate them into a series of initiatives and a set of business capabilities that have to either be created or improved in order to deliver these benefits. And so, again, what BIAN offers is a fantastic way to have traceability and change impact assessment from your kind of planned transformation agenda down into your kind of applications and technology. If you're from the architecture community, I mean, BIAN is built for you, right? It is an architecture, and we see enterprise architecture and business architecture as kind of being really, really pivotal and central to the success of any organization. And so, BIAN provides a great way to basically take your business capabilities, express them as a series of service domains, which in turn can be mapped down into your applications and technology layer to give confidence that where you are investing your change is going to kind of yield the benefits and results that is needed by the executive in the transformation office. And of course, we can't forget our engineers and analysts, right? The guys who actually build things. This is where the fingers hit the keyboard or the rubber hits the road. So you can anchor your requirements, you can anchor your designs to these Lego blocks, these stable elemental capabilities, and have strong traceability back to your transformation initiative. You can have traceability down to kind of your testing and your DevOps, and so it's a fantastic way to kind of link not just what you do, but why you're doing it. And last but not least, if you're in operations and you're kind of running the bank and you're responsible for making sure that everything kind of keeps ticking along, there is a way through configuration and application management to link your technology capabilities back up into your business capabilities, and again, through a very, very robust pattern-based framework, so that, again, the investment goes into the right areas, and you can also kind of harden and focus on the business critical aspects of your enterprise. So it really does cover the kind of full gamut of wherever you sit in the organization, right? I'm reminded of an anecdote when I think it was, I can't remember which American president it was, but they visited NASA, and we're actually doing a walkthrough, right? And they actually spoke to a janitor as they were leaving. They said, so what do you do around here? And the janitor said, I'm helping put a man on the moon, right? Which was a fantastic way to link kind of your day to day with the higher purpose. And so, BIAN is a great way to kind of allow any level or area of the organization to express what they do as a function of the strategy, not just as a function of their role.
Excellent. This is brilliant part of it. I just wanted to kind of summarize one and then come back to Mamta. One of the things, if I look at the slide as an outsider, right? I looked at this whole part of the model. I like this blueprint. I know the strategy, organization care is also OKRs that we have, the initiatives, business capabilities. This is all great. This used to be existing, right? There's nothing which has changed. And at the bottom, I have the application infrastructure. What I love about is that this whole service domains, now I'm understanding how they actually interface between the top and the bottom, because you need to have a conduit, you need to have the glue that actually makes sense in terms of interoperability, in terms of the movement that is happening from the up and down. So I think now I'm able to visualize when you talk about those domains, the 3,000 odd domains, service domains. Now I understand that to be more as an encompassing wrapper which will probably be able to differentiate that well. So this is really well done. I'll go to Mamta, but there's a couple of questions. So let's hear from Mamta and then we go to the questions.
Yeah, no, actually, you said exactly what I was going to say, Suresh. I think up until now, all these practices already existed in the industry, not just in banking industry, across different industries. What was missing in banking was that how do you translate that business architecture related practices like defining your strategies, your OKRs, initiatives, capabilities down to technology. So the gap between business and technology still existed because technology did require a level of granularity to understand what technology strategy or information strategies need to be developed. And buy-in service domains are exactly that, a glue which are able to provide that alignment to your information strategy, which can then realize your banking strategy. So I don't have to add anything. You were able to summarize it very well. So I'm assuming this session is going good, that you are able to answer the questions by yourself.
Right. So I think this is great. So there's a question coming from Pooja. Hello, team. One question may be simple. Is there a BIAN certification for organizations? I mean, if an organization claimed to use BIAN framework, does a BIAN audit team validate the design and certify? I mean, it's like, are you following service management? I could get it validated by an ISO IC 20000 because I know for sure that I'm following IT service management. So like that, do you have an organization level? I mean, there's another question on individual, which I'll come on later. But if I want to validate and tell to the rest of the world, as a bank, we are following BIAN, is it something that they can showcase from an audit perspective or a certification standard perspective right now?
I think Anish is the perfect to answer.
Yeah,
He's sitting on the working group for certification.
We're living and breathing this right now. It's a fantastic question, Pooja. So there's a couple of levels to this, right? You have your kind of products, you got your projects, you got your people, right? So at the product level, if you're, say, a vendor, you're developing say a pricing product or an origination product, there is a capability that is soon to be released, which will allow organizations to self-certify. So running through an AI-enabled tool that will effectively capture the kind of information to understand the composability of your solution, the compliance with the APIs, and allow you to kind of get to a picture or a rating of how closely you comply with BIAN. So that's in the works. That'll definitely be out later this year, and we're quite excited about that. The rest of it gets a little bit trickier. So if you want to kind of certify an organization, there isn't really a framework yet for that. But certainly for people, there is a very, very mature, very well used certification program that consists of training followed by sitting in an exam, and that gets you, an industry recognized certificate that says, you are at a foundation level or a practitioner level, and so forth. So there are mechanisms to certify people.
And I think that's sorry, Mamta, go ahead.
I was just going to add that we, apart from that BIAN is also looking at certain organizations, not as the implementation itself being certified, but organization who can deliver BIAN in the organization as well. That's also under consideration right now.
Awesome. And I think this is going back to Ramesh's question about how to get BIAN certified. I just wanted to kind of give you everyone thing. I was talking to my friend, I think a couple of weeks before, and he was applying in London. He was trying to apply for a job position in HSBC. And one of the mandate, it says in HSBC, is you need to be BIAN certified. Yet he had never heard about BIAN before, to be very honest. And it stated BIAN certified. So the point that I'm trying to bring in here is, if an organization did not see the value of BIAN certified professionals, they would not make this as a mandate as part of resume. Because I want to make this very clear for people all out here. If you are in the banking industry, if you are working in any of these roles that we are talking about as an architect, as an operations and engineering, you might need to consider yourself to get yourself trained and certified, because that is giving you an edge in terms of position. So if it's HSBC today, it will be more banks as it comes in, because we are trying to be in that particular space. So for all of the aspirants who are in the space of whatever roles that you are in, you might seriously think about getting yourself trained, because you will start talking the taxonomy that everybody understands, right? So whenever you talk about something like that, that's why TOGAF came in, that's why IT for IT came in, because you need to have a common level of taxonomy that you need to communicate between your stakeholders. So you might want to seriously consider getting yourself trained and certified, because then you'll have a clarity of what is BIAN and what is not. Because otherwise it's like I tell people half knowledge is dangerous. So you probably go there and seek out information from the experts and then do it. Just that part that I wanted to kind of call it out.
Fantastic, Suresh. And just to kind of put a bow around that answer and then the question, the short answer is go and visit ccncsolutions.com, right? So we have both B2B training and B2C training. So we have conducted training for global banks and literally trained hundreds and hundreds of architects and other practitioners. But we also run training for individuals. And so get in touch with us through ccncsolutions.com, and we can absolutely show you the pathway to get trained and certified.
Right. So I just wanted to thank, I think Pooja says that she's aware of the individual certification journey, but very curious about organization. So thanks for providing the clarification. So I'm going to be conscious of the time that we're going to take some questions as it comes in, because the whole part of this agenda was to give them information of that. So I'm going to pick up the next question that has come through on a model that earlier we mentioned BIAN's applicability to EA, information architecture, integration architecture. So I just want to kind of throw it to Mamta to kind of go us and take us through the journey of how does it break it down into parts, right? So if I look at this whole part of BIAN-inspired banking transformation, these different components, how do we kind of all relate this to the whole thing? Because this is a great slide that I saw coming in. So I wanted to kind of get you started off. How does it all work together in tandem? Are they in silos, or can we make a composition of making this as a one cohesive unit?
Yeah, I should definitely give credit to Nish to bringing this slide together. When I saw first time, it was all in my head, but never put on paper. And Nish was kind enough to be able to so nicely put it on paper. I think I'll start from bottom to going up, because I keep saying I have. If you know me, you would have seen that I keep saying that I can use BIAN for almost anything. But how do you actually use BIAN for anything in the organization? This slide actually talks about this very nicely. I start from bottom to up. So there is, irrespective of where we go, there are certain foundation which needs to be put in place no matter what. Starting from the fact that leadership awareness is that everyone in the organization, no change can happen in silo. It needs to happen across the whole organization, which means that your leadership needs to be aware that you need to have a change. You're looking for adopting BIAN. So that's definitely required. Organization alignment is required. Everyone, we talk about different persona, all of need to come together to adopt BIAN. Obviously, training certification, we talked about it. I won't get into that. The first step for foundation is that you should have to look at we're talking about reference architecture. And in case of BIAN, where we start with the reference architecture is where we say that you need to have your own. You can have an industry reference architecture, but you have to really adopt it to make it your own organization reference architecture. And that's what we call is as tailoring it the service landscape itself. And apart from that, you also need to consider tooling, some kind of internally organization. You have every organization have application needs to map it to your reference architecture. So these are a couple of things that you need to do as a foundational activity. It doesn't take too long to do that. But if that foundation activities have been done, then you start building on, and you can use BIAN in all different scenarios. So you can talk about using it as a reference architecture in your own organization. So understand, we were talking about the scenario, what is the as is, what's to be, what is the transition stage. So you can start articulating your reference architecture itself as BIAN as a reference architecture. Integration architecture, because there is service operations which could be translated into APIs. Now BIAN's also publishing APIs in the REST, so which is more handy, because every developer, when he goes and looks at REST, it is very much they can understand it better than just talking about service operation. So you can use it as your integration architecture. I'll move to information first before coming to services-based operating model, is because you can use BIAN has defined almost every business object that are relevant for a banking industry itself. So hence, when you're looking at your information architecture, you can literally lift it from BIAN and start using it as your information architecture starting point in the organization. We talked about how you can link business and technology, which is all about business architecture. So you can use BIAN in different aspects for your business architecture. Bringing all this together, we were talking about all different types of architecture up until now, but that's not where BIAN. That's not just what you can use BIAN for. You can also look at your transforming your organization, your ownership structure within the organization aligned to BIAN service domains. So you can literally transform your organization from a product-centric organization or service product-centric organization to a service-centric organization, where every part of the organization is looked up as a service which has been provided from one business unit to another business unit. So it can holistically look at transforming your organization, also leveraging the concept and principles of BIAN. So what does it give us? So all this is good, but then the first thing question CIO is going to ask is, so what? What is it going to give me? And that's what, once you have all these things in place, any kind of business banking use case that you'd look about, either you're trying to do a co-modernization, you're going to do a digital transformation, or there is a mergers acquisition going on, or if there is any kind of payment innovation which is going on, all of these use cases can leverage one or multiple of these foundational elements to deliver quickly and faster the results that banks needs to get to today. So we literally think that this BIAN as a framework in different aspects can really fast track all these major problems that all of the banking industry is currently facing.
Awesome. So one of the things I wanted to just touch base, because you really mentioned a very important part of the prerequisites, right? Get the foundation or the basic building blocks right. So I wanted to kind of narrate our experience, right? Working with a lot of the banks. One of the things that we have been doing, right, with CCNC Solutions, when we are talking to clients, is an executive overview. Because what we have seen is that the executive brief is being very well respected, what we are delivering for the clients globally, because they say that, okay, this gave us a good view of the do's and don'ts and what other companies are doing. Because a lot of companies that we work with, it's saying that, what's my competition doing? What am I not doing? So how can I be up to the speed? So if any one of you as a bank was looking at what is BIAN, and if you want some help, these experts will be happy to do a 1-hour session of executive overview. We can get in touch, because we have a couple of slides that we will show about how to contact us after we go through this webinar. But I wanted to kind of throw this to everybody, right? You have to start with the leadership team, because if you don't spend that time and if you get the buy-in from them, it's going to be a Herculean effort. So do not do the wrong thing if you don't get your buy-in and management support. So just wanted to give you a bit of heads up on that. Nish, you want to add anything quickly on this one before we go to the next
No,
question?
that's spot on. That's and look, just adding to what Suresh said, the beautiful thing about BIAN is it's probably the first time that I'm seeing a way to have a conversation at that C-suite level in a way that makes sense and actually ties back into kind of your architecture and your technology, because everything is articulated as business capabilities. Everything can be linked back to a strategy. So it, as Suresh said, starting from the top down is not just a great way to start. It's probably the only way to ensure that there's some level of sort of continuity and support for rolling out BIAN. So.
Awesome. So there's a couple of questions that I wanted to kind of bring into that as a way to make this one, is how are organizations as well as vendors adopting to BIAN? Because everybody, and this is a very important slide for everybody to understand, because you can be in any part of your journey, right? You can be starting off in the journey, you can kind of becoming mature on that. But I wanted to kind of get both your perspectives on what's the journey look like? How are they going to adopt to BIAN? Now, people are sold out on the benefits that you saw, the 6 steps. But what is in for me, and how am I going to adopt this whole journey? So if you can just run us through, that'll be helpful.
For sure. Look, and probably the first thing I'll say is no bank is kind of following the exact same linear steps, right? So this is not a process flow. There are lots of entry points into BIAN. We work with organizations that are using application rationalization and APM as a priority, and you could absolutely use BIAN for that. We're working with organizations that are radically simplifying their APIs and moving to kind of open APIs and reusable APIs, and you could absolutely use BIAN for that. We're working with organizations that are facing into legacy decommissioning and core modernization, and again, you can use BIAN for that. So there's lots of entry points, but the way we see kind of the maturity curve is in 3 stages. We have classified banks around the world into kind of your stage 1 BIAN aware. That's where they've heard of BIAN, they recognize it as an industry reference architecture. They might be developing a business case to adopt it, and maybe starting to participate in some forums and talk to other banks about their journey. So the BIAN aware stage is where a lot of people start. BIAN active is where you kind of just get that little bit of a push into starting to adopt it as a reference architecture. You're starting to adopt it for some use cases and proof of concepts. And so we call these BIAN active, right? You're starting to actually do something with BIAN. Then there's a third stage where you really start to kind of transition into what we call BIAN committed. And this is where you're starting to scale it across your lines of business. You're starting to embed it in your IT ops and biz ops. And eventually what we see as the kind of the pinnacle is that your entire organization, your artifacts, your processes, everything is fully aligned to BIAN, right? So these are kind of this is one way to kind of see the maturity curve. And probably the key message here is the first stage is very easy to self-serve and go to BIAN.org and talk to other banks and kind of get the information you need. Once you get into kind of BIAN active, it is, great as BIAN is, it's very helpful to also get some expertise to kind of help make sure you kind of adopt it the right way. And certainly once you're getting into BIAN committed, you want to be drawing from both your internal as well as external, talent.
Right. So what it means is here that the more the effort that you can spend, there is a lot of value that will be generated. So you're kind of proportionating the effort versus value, right? So at a BIAN hour stage, you're just getting to start. You're kind of basing the foundation level that Mamta was talking about, getting that started off, and then you start going into the journey. So obviously, to your point, Nish, that you talked about, within 3 months, if I can get all the basic blocks in place and use some top 3 use cases and get some quick wins or early momentum in that first quarter, then I can get to that BIAN active. Because a lot of companies, they say, hey, show me some results, show me some pilots, show me some quick wins that I can just say it's worth spending the money, right? I was actually in Philippines 3 weeks before, where I was talking to the bank. They say, hey, you know what? We have spent a lot of money. Okay, show me some results. So once we see some results, we will invest further. And that's a fair point, right? So it takes time, and it's a marathon, right? It doesn't take. You'll have to be prepared for running through this marathon. Anything else you want to add, Mamta, on this when we go to the last?
No, I think you guys have covered very much everything. I think there is, as we were talking, there's a value to be driven at every stage of it, and the value definitely that you deliver exponentially increases. And over a period of time, what we've realized is that for BIAN, every use case could be a good use case, provided you start with BIAN in some capacity for that particular use case. And we talk about doing a proof of value, not proof of concept. Let's prove the value of BIAN with whatever use case we have already existing in the organization, whatever transformation you're doing, whatever changes you're doing, whatever digital capability you're building. Leverage that to use BIAN, accelerate your adoption of BIAN using all of those use cases. So every place is a good place to start for BIAN adoption.
Awesome. There's a couple of things I think we need to talk about in the slides. Is what is for an individual organization to go forward, right? I mean, where does that, and how can CCNC help in the journey? Because you're the experts, you've been there in the industry, you've done that, you've seen that whole through. So what does it take us as an individual organization? So I want to spend a couple of minutes more, so kind of a minute in a slide, and then we'll kind of wrap it up.
For sure. So as I mentioned earlier, we've kind of got a B2B and a B2C track, right? So if you're an individual, you could absolutely go on a certification journey. So hop onto our website. There's a link there. You can learn about the kind of training programs that we offer. You can then, start to look at how you evangelize this within your organization, right? So There are banks that we talk to where, you know, someone in the organization, an architect or a solution designer or a senior dev lead has brought us in to kind of go, hey, look, I'm trying to sell BIAN within the organization. You know, I'm absolutely bought into it, but I just need a little bit of help to get the senior leadership alignment. So, you know, contact us, right? We can absolutely help with that kind of executive level presentation. If you're in an organization, you know, the first thing is, you know, let's get a team skill uplift underway, right? Get that foundation established, get the right people up to speed on BIAN and get them certified. Again, that sort of getting at executive level alignment and commitment. And then what we find is that, you know, start with a use case. We can do a discovery workshop. We can effectively build all the components of a business case, looking at kind of, you know, what's the kind of high level reference architecture for that use case? What's the rough effort? How do you stage it? What's the kind of timeline? And then you can estimate the cost. So, you know, building a business case is a great way to start. And we kind of offer the full suite of consultancy services that take you from that very initial, you know, get your teams trained all the way through to actually starting to build some proof of value, proof of concepts, and go into scale.
Awesome. So I think we are on the top of the hour. So we will put this particular contact names to kind of go through it around. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in this episode of LinkedIn Live. I hope this is being useful. I wanted to thank everyone for this particular time and be in touch with us. And extreme thanks to Mamta and Nish for enlightening us in the last 1 hour. It just 1 hour flew away. I just didn't realize it's the top of the hour, but thank you so much for sharing your insights and perspectives.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Suresh.
Thanks, Suresh, for hosting and facilitating. And thank you, everyone. It was great to connect with you.
Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll keep in touch. Thank you so much.
Thanks.